You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Broadcasting from the Blanchardstown Centre, this is Phoenix FM.
This is 92.5 Phoenix FM, community radio for Dublin 15.
Hey everybody, it's JB Jeremy Borash, and you are listening to Darrow O'Connor on the...
Welcome to the Wrestling Rewind, the only wrestling podcast by fans who don't hate wrestling.
Alright everybody, it is Phoenix 92.5 FM here on Tuesday, and of course if you're listening to us on the True Penny channel, Nerd to Know Media, and where all podcasts are made available. Thank you so much. This is the Wrestling Rewind. My name is Darrow O'Connor, and I am joined by my co-host, the reigning, undefeated, 1-0, Mr. Martin Herty. How are things, Martin?
I'm grand. I'm patiently waiting for CM Punk's response to my challenge. It's been a week now. We haven't heard back. Now, to be fair to him, he was busy this week with MJF and FTR. So
that's no excuse. No excuse.
Give him another couple of days.
Give him another couple of days. Oh man, I'm telling you, that's it. Martin undefeated and has a better MMA record than CM Punk. So CM Punk, prove him wrong. Prove him wrong. You've been challenged. You've been called out, sir.
I'm waiting. A big garden here. We can throw a couple of ropes around the edge of it. Make it an octagon.
How are you, sir? How are you getting on?
Grand. You know yourself, working away, and actually excited after the past couple of weeks to get back into the old school WCW.
Oh, absolutely. Like, we're still having technical issues. Full disclosure. This will be my third computer that I'm trying to get when I order it. It's very annoying. But hopefully that will work out. So guys, pray that it works. And
it's getting worse and worse for Dara. The most recent computer physically attacked him today.
Physically attacked me today. And I have the dreaded virus. So it's been a double duet of pleasures as such.
He's getting battered inside and out.
Oh man, it's a thing that's happening. But if you want to help us out, send us money. No, only joking, but not really. You totally can over in Nerd to Know Media. We have a PayPal link. But no, I'm hoping to get the technical issue sorted. I wouldn't mind. It's not because I'm not buying them. They're just broken. Like the last one, literally the GPU broke. And then I was on to the support guy and he's like, yeah, the GPU's broken. I'm like, so what does that mean? He's like, well, we can collect it and fix it. I'm like, all right, cool. How long will that take? 3 months. And I'm like,
is it you, do you think? Do you think you've reached such a level of technological advancement now that your body is physically interfering with the technology?
Potentially. I don't know. Like the Livono that I got initially, I probably should have just left because it worked. But then when it just didn't when I tried to mess around with it by putting a different drive in it. And that's what kind of broke it. And it was just the actual connections weren't there to do it, because basically for anyone who doesn't know, when you're messing around with computers and changing components, it needs to be on the board. So basically I was trying to put a hard drive in that didn't have the connections, and I was like, well, this doesn't work, so I had to turn it back. And then as I was looking inside it, I'm like, oh, one of the lights is broken. So it wasn't me that broke it, but it still would have been fine. And I do think I should have just quit while I was ahead.
I had a similar issue with a Christmas tree. One of the lights just put the whole thing out, but I figured it out. You're not the only electronics whiz.
This is true. Oh, this is true. It's just it's a bit of a bummer, guys. So that's why the production sounds a little bit different and the shows aren't as frequent. I'm trying to I have a stopgap now where we're still able to get the show done every week, but we'll eventually get there. But thanks for bearing with us. But if you do want to help the show out, the best way to do it is to tell people about the show, send people links, send people who you don't like the show. We don't mind. You don't mind.
We'll take fame or infamy. Either's good with us.
Oh, we don't mind because we're going the WCW 2000 route because apparently so are WWE. But you know what? You know what? Man, I haven't seen the show in about, 20 years? And then I haven't thought about the show in about 10 years because a long time fans of what this show was before, the Rescue International Desk, we actually did a series on Vampiro. It's called the Vampiro Chronicles, where Corey would actually go through the worst Vampiro matches in WCW history. And one of them was the Human Torch match, and I completely forgot about it until I start watching the show, and I'm like, oh my God, I totally forgot about this.
Well, it's because apart from that one spot, the rest of the show was just entirely forgettable.
I wouldn't say the show was forgettable, man. This show had everything. And by everything, I mean, it was all terrible. It had so many gimmick matches that you're like, there's no normal matches in it. It had run-ins. Booking made no sense. We got David Flair for some reason. Horace Hogan was there.
It had 10 matches. 5 of them were like out-and-out actual gimmick matches.
Yeah.
But 2 of them as well were also 2 retirement matches. So if you count them as gimmick matches, that's 7 out of 10 on the night. And 2 of them were bloody retirement matches.
There was a 5-table match.
Oh.
Which basically means, ladies and gentlemen, you have to put your opponent through 5 tables.
Although it really confused me by the end because, yeah, it was definitely described as a 5-table match. And then at the end of it, I was like, that wasn't 5 tables.
That was 3.
And then it turned out it was best of 5.
Yeah, best of 5.
A 3-table match.
But the way they had said it throughout the whole time was it's a 5-table match. You have to put your opponent through 5 tables. And then they're like, oh, it's a hat trick. And you're like, wait, hold on. Hold on. This makes no sense.
I wonder were there timing issues or something? Because
oh, man, I don't know. I think they realized after the bell had rung, they're like, wait, no, we messed up. We meant best of 5. That's what we meant.
Yeah. Or maybe they thought, hell, doing 5 table spots, maybe that's going to devalue the table bump.
It did, though. We'll get to it.
Nothing. Yeah, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. All right. Before we get anywhere, though, I know we're tight for time, so very quickly.
Absolutely.
Keith Lee and Jay Switchblade in AEW.
Man.
Holy hell.
I don't know. I'm just like... Wait, look. When he showed up, I was just like, okay, he should have been there from the beginning, to be fair. But it's also like, more WWE guys showing up. It's like, they should have shook it up a little bit and had, like, The Fiend show up. On Impact.
I thought as long as it's Impact.
I know, to be fair, look, I'm happy he's there. He should have been there from the beginning, but that's a huge win for AEW. Eventually AEW is going to have everybody, and WWE, as we said, it's just going to be like it's going to be either Brock Lesnar or Roman Reigns doing all the voices, playing 2K22.
Well, that's the concern for WrestleMania, isn't it? Because no matter who wins, it's either the guy who's been champion for 500 and something days or the part-timer who's a 20-year veteran at this stage. Like, oh, man. Those are your options.
Have you seen I was on the PlayStation 5 there the other day, and last night because I was playing Planet Coaster, which is the best game of all time. I love Theme Park Sims, man. I don't even know why I like them so much. They're just brilliant. And I saw there was an ad for 2K22. And the big selling point this year is the NWO. I'm like, really? Again?
I saw an ad for it recently as well that had like they were revealing more members of the roster, and it was like the Macho Man and Roddy Piper, and I'm like, I wonder why you need to use all these legends. Is it because you have 4 wrestlers left?
Is this because they're not going to show up in AEW next week? Is that the concern? That seems to be the way. You know, eventually what they're going to do is they're going to release like the WCW pack, where it's literally just everyone who is either retired or dead from 2000 WCW.
I'm surprised that they haven't.
I think it's going to come eventually because it's like, who else do they have? Nobody.
Yeah, but I'm genuinely surprised they haven't made like an ECW game or just
Well, that just makes too much sense. That's a license to print money. The same with like what they should have done, and not to go to too much of a tangent, but they should have just released. When it got kind of ropey there with 2K, they should have just been like ECW Legacies, WCW Legacies, or whatever, and then just release that. Sure, look how long it took them to do a GM mode. People were screaming at them for 15 years to do a GM mode, and now they're like, "Oh, we'll do a GM mode."
Honestly,
like,
I think they should have just
easy.
I don't know why they didn't just keep updating No Mercy.
Well, fans have.
It's like that Simpsons meme. It's like, I don't know why they need to keep releasing wrestling games. They reached perfection in 1999.
Well, look, No Mercy's awesome. My personal favorite, I do really, really like SmackDown vs. Raw 2005 because of the GM mode, and then you can just make your own roster or whatever. But like, I don't know, the SmackDown series was great actually, in general. Not the first one. The first one is janky as all hell, but the second one is a lot of fun, and I really like the third one. But I don't know. Anyway, this game's gonna be awful. I can just.
Do you think so?
Well, like, I think it'll be technically a lot better than 2020. The storyline might be not as cringe. I think they've learned their lesson in that sense. But I'm like, what's the point? Like, everyone's just going to use it to download the AEW roster and then just use that. That's what always happens. What I always do whenever I get them, I just download all of the Impact roster and just start making Impact.
I think one of the things that has people worried, and again, I won't be getting it. I've tried a couple of the 2K games, and I just find them far too heavy on the simulator side rather than the arcade side.
Yeah.
But what a lot of people have been seeing online have been saying this is like the 4th or 5th ad you've released with no in-game footage. And
oh man, they're gonna make
people a wee bit worried.
It's coming out next month, and it's just like, oh, we've seen this before. Like 2K20, I think, is a masterwork of terrible games and terrible decisions. I love that game. The story mode is the worst thing I've ever played in my life. It makes no sense, but it's weirdly like prescient, right? Because in it, the Undertaker has a cinematic match. The Fiend is like really important in it, and there's loads of empty arena matches.
Holy hell!
Yeah, it's crazy. I might when things do get sorted, I might actually do a full playthrough of it on Twitch and be like, look, let's compare. But anyway, let's move. Let's forget about 2020.
Yeah,
and go to 2000.
Even further back.
So even further back, 2000 to Baltimore, Maryland, which is funny. I was in Baltimore once for work. No, I was beside Baltimore. I was in Maryland, not Baltimore. I was in Baltimore City once, and got into a taxi. The taxi man had a gun in the taxi, and like it was really scary.
Jesus.
Yeah, Baltimore is a scary place. I'm, if you're from there, thank you for listening. But your city's really scary. For context, Ireland doesn't have guns, or well, it does, but not legally, and not as.
We should specify that Dara's in the south and I'm in the north.
Fair. I'm in the south. In the south, things are
slightly different perspectives.
Slightly different. That's true. That's a very good point. I was just like, I was in a taxi and I was pretty drunk actually, and your man was like, "Oh, it's $100 whatever," and I'm like, it's like $100 whatever, and then I'm like, "Oh, it seems a bit high," and he just like opens the glove box and has his gun. I'm like, "Okay, it's $100," and I was just like, "All right, fair enough." Luckily, that's all.
A generous tip.
Yeah, I was like, "There you go," but I didn't pay for it. Thankfully, it was the company. But I'm like, Baltimore is off my list of places to ever visit again.
And it always has such happy connotations for me because it just makes me think of Jungle Boy's entrance theme.
Oh, you haven't seen The Wire?
Baltimore. Oh, is The Wire Baltimore?
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah, it's grim.
Yeah, man. So I was just like, all right, we're not going to Baltimore ever again. Maryland does pretty nice, to be fair, the actual like state. But anyway,
you didn't get to visit New Amsterdam.
I didn't. No, I didn't.
Ah,
Not there, sadly. Not there. I did get to be in a room with a bunch of like generals who worked with like Edward Snowden when I was over there, and I was
oh,
like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." Yeah, but whenever Edward Snowden's name is brought up around that kind of group, you just hear.
here. Speaking of generals, did you
Go for
find
it.
this to be a very military gimmick heavy?
It's supposed to be. It's Great American Bash.
Is it? Yeah, I couldn't figure out why like Booker T was in military fatigues and.
Okay, well there is some story. So let's set the scene here. So in our timeline of WCW, there's the New Blood and the Millionaires Club, right?
Yeah.
When Russo came in, they had changed a bunch of gimmicks. So obviously, Harlem Heat were gone. They were Splitsville. And what they decided to do was create the Misfits in action.
Yes, this is General Hugh G. Rection and all that.
Yes, yes. And Lieutenant Loco, who is Chavo Guerrero.
Major Guns.
Major Guns, G.I. Bro, who is Booker
G.I.
T. I don't know. I really like G.I. Bro. I thought that was a cool gimmick. But I mean, if I was a wrestler and I was a jobber, I'd pick G.I. Bro as my gimmick because it'd be hilarious. Obviously,
I think military gimmick is just.
Oh, it's
I
brilliant.
think it does spell death for anyone.
It's the perfect jobber gimmick, though. It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. It's like, because why not? Like, no one's really going to boo you, and you're not going to get beaten that badly, but you're not.
Tell you what I did really enjoy about the Misfits in action. I was looking up the guy who's in one of the later matches, The Wall.
Yes.
And apparently, a couple of months down the line, he joins them, and they change his name to AWOL.
It was funny.
Away without leave.
So he came into the company. He came into the company with Alex Wright, who we have covered before. Alex Wright was then known as Berlin, the heel, and guess who debuted with him?
Who?
The Wall, Berlin Wall.
Oh,
yeah. WCW, ladies and gentlemen.
Literally just been run by a bunch of 14-year-olds.
This is what happened. You know what? I'm convinced that there's like some kind of mind rot in wrestling companies at a certain point, and it's just in WWE now, or someone is just poisoning Vince. Maybe Vince Russo's booking WWE.
So what do you think? We'll get 20 good years of AEW before it starts?
Before it starts, Vince Russo just shows up randomly going, wait, hold on. Why are they making terrible puns? Oh no, it's here. It's the rot in the walls.
Before Tony Khan loses his mind and starts showing up to Dynamite and changing things an hour before the show starts.
It has to, man. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just like the decline is so incredibly similar that you're like, there has to be something. It's like the madness of kings, where like Vince has completely lost the plot, or whoever is running the show just doesn't have, or maybe they're just so out of touch, because at this point as well, WCW was a major corporation run not by a wrestling company as such, but run by the Turners, So
things are not going well. This show had an attendance of 7,000. Pay-per-view buys of 85,000, which was actually up from Slamboree, which is only 65. Meanwhile, over in WWF, Judgment Day, which is like a B-level pay-per-view, had almost 18,000 people in attendance and 475,000 pay-per-view buys.
But Judgment Day also, that was actually a great show. That had the Iron Man match and the Return of the Undertaker.
2000.
Yes.
No. This was the one with the, because it was kind of bizarre. The title was decided in a 6-man tag match, like the world title was
Judgment
decided.
Day.
Yeah, it was wasn't it Judgment Day?
No, Judgment Day. Judgment Day had the Return of the Undertaker.
Oh, I looked up their June pay-per-view for that. Well, whatever the June.
Oh yeah, the June pay-per-view. This was July. Oh no, this was in June. I don't know. Anyway, hold on. I'm gonna look this up because we're
Yeah.
professionals here. We're gonna look up the June pay-per-view 2000.
Yeah, you're bloody right.
King of the Ring.
It was King of the Ring is what it was. Yeah. So it had 475,000 pay-per-view buys. And it's creatively, it wasn't. It had the Patterson Briscoe evening ball gown match, and
oh yeah, this wasn't a good pay-per-view.
yeah, and it had the world title being decided in a 6-man tag, but it still did. Oh, I don't know, 6 times the business of Great American Bash.
Yeah, no, that was. Oh, that was this was a bad.
It's King of the Ring.
It was a bad King of the Ring. Judgment Day was actually class, and I think Fully Loaded was pretty meh as well. Actually,
I think there was an era there, sort of late 90s.
Actually, no, that was good. That was good. I had Triple H versus Jericho, which is one of the best last man standing matches going. And a surprisingly good Val Venus for Rikishi steel cage match.
But that's the thing, like late 90s, early 90s, some of those sort of B-level WWF pay-per-views, they were bloody better than the big 4, the big 5. Some of them were awesome.
But I would actually make the case, and we've actually haven't covered any of those shows on this broadcast yet because we're not in that timeline. Our WWE timeline ended Armageddon 1999, and the reason why I'm kind of holding off on that is because I do firmly believe 2000's WWE is the best year of wrestling ever.
Yeah,
so I'm excited.
Definitely good argument for that.
And I'm excited to see it again while we're watching it for this rather than watching it for myself or watching it as a kid or whatever. Because like it is really, really good. So I'm not shocked to hear the numbers. I think we'll just skip that King of the Ring though, because that was a bad show.
I would pretty much covered it now.
Yeah, and that's a Kurt Angle one, and it was a good match, and it was the only good thing about the whole show. But man, it's weird watching this show, this Great American Bash. I didn't look up what was the parallel show, so I'm glad that you did. But it makes it even worse because you're like, whoa, they are getting annihilated. They're getting annihilated. Because, like, let's start off. For the Cruiserweight Championship, we have Disco Inferno, your boy, Disco Inferno.
Couldn't believe it.
I couldn't believe it here. I'm like
I can't escape.
Who was defeated by Chavo Guerrero.
But it's such a bloody it's such a disappointment because, man, even a year earlier, if you could count on nothing else in the WCW pay-per-view, you could count on the opening cruiserweight match to be a banger.
Yes.
And the past couple of months, it just been terrible.
Well, look, that would have been a 5-year. Sorry, it would have been a 10 to 15 minute banger, right?
Absolutely.
Great spots, really creative. And look, we've seen it. You know, Eddie Guerrero and Kidman going out and
Mysterio, like they were.
You know, I know it's kind of cliche to say, but it's true, man. Like, you know, they go out and they had really good matches because the Cruiserweight belt, it wasn't just, oh, you're like 100 pounds, 200 pounds, you know, go out there and the belt means something. It's like, no, you're 200 pounds, 100 pounds, but you're going to go out and this is your world championship. And then we're like Disco Inferno's losing. Yeah.
I think I don't think it's any coincidence that the Cruiserweight title lost its prestige whenever the Russo era started.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Chronic.
Hey!
Brian Adams and Brian Clark, which
the Mamalukes,
yeah, this was a tag team match for the number one contendership for the WCW Tag Team Championships. This match did not need to be nearly 10 minutes. Chronic, if you remember when he came into WWE during the invasion, they were bad then. they were bad now. So
I was kind of a fan of Chronic. I like
really?
I like the big man but agile kind of thing. Maybe they just looked good in this because the Mamelukes were woeful.
Fair, okay.
But the only thing I never really got about them was the gimmick. So
Yeah.
Chronic, like obviously they're named after like cannabis, but they're like two really fast, really intense guys. You know, it's not really what you think of when you think of you know.
I think it's just supposed to be like, okay, so they were put together very very early into 2000, so April 2000, so only a couple of months before the show, right? And Vince Russo came up with the name, so it's a Vince Russo. It is a Vince Russo name. Remember, this is the guy who had SEX as a, you know, and
TNA.
all that TNA, and you know, these are all. This is his kind of thing, and it was part of the New Blood. So all these matches had some sort of New Blood versus the Millionaire side of things. So I just think Vince Russo was like, "Oh man, this would be a funny name."
Yeah, without actually having any
without
kind
actually
of
yeah,
thought
because
behind it.
like the two lads, they have a good look. They're not atrocious in the ring, but it never really kind of clicks for me when I'm watching it. And then you have Big Vito and Johnny the Bull just being dire. So
Is this where Tony D'Angelo got his gimmick from?
I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked. But your winners are Chronic, and if you remember correctly, Chronic actually do hold the belts a fair bit at the end of WCW because they go into WWE holding them and then get killed by Undertaker and Kane.
Is that just because at that stage WCW didn't have anybody?
Didn't have anybody else.
left.
No, didn't have
tag
anybody
teams
else.
left.
Well, it's interesting, right? So they have a match for it's a contendership, right? But the belts aren't defended.
Oh yeah, I didn't even notice that.
So it's like, I think you have this the wrong way around. You're supposed to, yeah.
I think Russo subscribes to the Vince McMahon view of tag teams.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't really think they're legitimate or worth spending any time on.
But the show picked up for me. Like I had speckles of good, you know, and unfortunately, ambulance match, with one exception, is a terrible gimmick. To end feuds, it's a terrible gimmick. It really is. The only match that kind of gets around that is the Shane McMahon one. Actually, ironically enough, with Kane. But it takes all the heat out of it because it's very, very hard to really. Like they even said on commentary, they're like, "How do you know when the man is beat enough? Well, you're gonna have to kill him," and you're like, "What are you saying?" Like,
but
you put him into the match and you put him into the ambulance, and then you close it. Like, look, Scott Hudson was mind-numbingly annoying on this show. Mark Madden was okay. Shivani was carrying the whole thing on his back.
Oh, the whole thing.
I miss Tanay so much because he just he makes everything so much more watchable, particularly when he's there with Shivani. But holy hell, man!
I never really saw what it is you see in Tanea, because I've been watching these shows a couple of months, and like every week you're popping for Tanea. I've never really seen it, and man, did I get it tonight! Like you missed him. So like someone's got to be the straight man, and he's a really good straight man.
He is, yeah. Like no one was Shivani did what he could, but he was never the man who called the action. He was just kind of directing traffic and the broadcaster, right? Scott Hudson is too busy off being a heel, or sometimes not being a heel, depending. And Mark Madden is just there, and you're like, lad, do something, do anything. And then he just says nonsense, and you're like, well. I calls like that, you know, it just, if there had been someone just even talking about the match, it would have made some sort of sense. But then just doing awful calls like that. Now, to be fair,
there was dreadful calls. I actually made notes of some of the dreadful calls.
Oh, go on.
During the GI Bro match, he was like, at some stage during the GI Bro match, he said, "Oh my God, we're almost 20 minutes into this battle." And I was like, the whole match is 13 minutes long. And then when the Tank Abbott match came out, to go, here's Tank Abbott, and he's a shoot fighter, which is a great way of saying, and everything else is fake.
Yeah. No, to be fair, he was, but they should have said MMA fighter rather than shoot fighter, because it's like.
Well, yeah, because the opposite of shoot is work, So.
So I was a big fan of Mike Awesome, and I was like, oh man, like, to be fair, WCW did him real bad.
And it really hit watching. See, you were right. See, if you get rid of the ambulance gimmick, this would have been a hell of a match.
Yeah,
a hell of a,
because DDP's there as well, and they actually both go out there and actually the match is about 10 minutes long. The first like 5 minutes are actually really good.
Really good.
And then they go up the ramp.
I'm watching Mike Awesome land like this enormous guy land these amazing frog splashes, and I'm like, how did you not do something with him?
Like, it falls apart the minute they go up the ramp, and then Canyon's there, and again I'm also like, Canyon's there, and instead of doing anything with him, he's in a wheelchair with a neck brace, and you're like, it's Canyon. The three of them could have a match that would be outstanding. What is going on?
I thought Canyon was at least going to get the Zack Ryder treatment from Mike Awesome, because he was in the wheelchair.
What's wheeled off?
Fired off the stage or something.
But no, it had to be a surprise turn.
Swerve, bro.
Yeah, it was a swerve. It was a swerve.
Russo.
Mike Awesome picks up the victory in 9 minutes and 41 seconds.
I'll tell you what I loved. Before this match, DDP had a sort of a pre-match interview with I can't remember her name, but she was Pamela. Yeah, so she was doing the pre-match interviews with one person, and Schiavone was doing them with the other person the whole way through the night. But man, she came in the whole night. She came in for some really unwarranted abuse. So like she said something to DDP, and it was really like just like a proper sports question. She was like, oh yeah, you're fighting a really big, impressive opponent tonight. And he just said, I don't think so, yeah, bimbo, and walked off.
Oh man, not the worst thing we've ever heard, but
not even the worst thing of this show. Like we accidentally skipped over the whole thing at the start with the old fella coming down to the ring and attempting to grope one of the women, and then having a heart attack, and then Major Guns having to give him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Oh my god, it was Russo.
Oh man, yeah, there's gonna be more of that. So we had next what is referred to as a boot camp match with G.I. Bro, aka Booker T, and Sean the Meat Stasiak. This was not good. This was not good, and I know you're shocked by that because Sean Stasiak is in it, but you shouldn't be, because Sean Stasiak is once the name Sean Stasiak, David Flair, or I don't know, insert random name there, but it's probably Disco Inferno or Ernest the Cat Miller. Once they're brought in,
I don't know, we've been converted. We're a Cat Stan account now.
Depends. He has some splaining to do later on for what happens.
I'll tell you what surprised me with this. A lot of big things happened on this show, but with like no fanfare. Or they weren't. Like the Canyon swerve in the last match, it kind of happened off to like the corner. The camera didn't even really catch it. And then at the start of this one, G.I. Bro comes in. He gets the Shawn Michaels WrestleMania 12 treatment. He comes in to the ring from this huge zip line. But the camera doesn't make any big sort of fanfare about it or spotlight. It just sort of pans up, and then he's just there. Like flying through the air.
WCW production, it's horrendous. And if they had have just put some extra, it's Dynamite. Dynamite sometimes does it, but they're not no way near as bad. It's the one thing WWE has and always has. It just knows how to shoot wrestling really well and present it really well.
Although I find that they really overcomplicate it now. They do far too many cuts and shaky
absolutely,
cam.
absolutely. But I mean, like, it's still unparalleled, even though it's a bit way too much now. And even in 2000, when you're watching it and you're comparing the two, you're like, it's night and day. You know, it just really is night and day. But I also think I think it's that, but it's also the fact that when you're watching the show again, they don't care about anyone who isn't Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
And
you know, it kind of makes sense because I really noticed the difference in the crowd the whole night. The crowd don't care about anyone who isn't Hogan. Hogan's the only time they came alive.
And you know what? It might be, and it kills me to say that as somebody who's proudly blocked by Hulk Hogan, and sadly still blocked by Fozzy. Lads, come on. It was a bad review, and it's just like it makes sense. Like, but the whole show suffers because instead of trying to build anyone else, they're like, you just get the feel that like none of this matters until Hogan walks out. And that's kind of, so I think maybe it's intentionally on purpose. Or sorry, not intentionally on purpose, if that makes sense. Where it's like, I don't think they're trying to do it, but because they're not trying to improve things, it's like, well, none of this matters.
They didn't even, they did a half-arsed job even of putting up Booker T's zip line.
Yeah.
Because I know the intention was Shawn Michaels WrestleMania 12, but the thing really slumped in the middle and he had to like swing himself to get momentum. And for a second, it looked like he was almost going to be, did you ever see that picture of Boris Johnson when he got caught in the middle of a zip line? He's just hanging there. So they almost went from Michaels to Johnson.
Oh, man. Oh, it's just, I feel sorry for, I don't feel sorry for Sean Sajak. I feel sorry for G.I. Bro because like the match itself wasn't great. What he had to work with wasn't great, but he was still very entertaining. And it's like,
see these matches with a 10 count.
Oh,
very,
I hate them.
Very difficult.
Oh, I hate them.
Very
difficult. I hate them so much.
Hangman and Lance Archer had one on AEW this week, and it was bloody brilliant. And it's because they really, really limited the amount of times they used that 10 count.
Dude,
nothing sucks the wind or momentum out of a match. Like,
well, look, 10 count in a last man standing match, the way WWE used to book the match. Let's just do comparison. This time, WWE, let's take the Judgment Day one, because I think it was the last man standing match with Shane McMahon and Big Show. And that was how you do these kind of matches. This one, as you said, there was no spacing. They would like spot count, spot count, spot count.
Yeah.
Bigger spot count, break up. And it's like, no, you have to do a few spots, then count. Or else you're count. The poor ref was counting for the majority of this match.
Maybe that's why your man thought he was the commentator thought we were 20 minutes into this thing, because that's what it felt like.
That's what it did feel like. So G.I. Bro ended up winning. The next match wasn't as bad as I thought. Like, it wasn't. The next match wasn't bad, right? But it did fundamentally undermine a table spot for me.
And it had one of the worst endings ever.
Yeah, it was. But the match itself wasn't bad.
It was in terms of, once you take out all the table stuff and going down the back and all that, the match in the ring was probably about 5 minutes, and it was decent. Here's
the thing though, right? With the last and even the next match, right? I don't know why these matches had to have gimmicks. There's 4 matches in a row here that were hurt by the gimmick.
Yeah.
You know, the ambulance match could have just been a no disqualifications match and it would have been better for it. The boot camp match is stupid. That should never happen again. The table match, under like, if it had just been a tables match,
yeah,
cool.
And you can still do the spot with 3 tables stacked up.
Yeah. But
yeah.
But just like, put them through the table again. Oh wait, no, you have to put them through, and you're like, no, this is dumb. This is really dumb.
We've noticed this before though with WCW changing the rules of a stipulation like halfway through. Like, do you remember the Hogan Flair cage match? And it had some stipulation that there was barbed wire around the top of the ring, and you weren't supposed to leave, or you weren't allowed to leave, and then suddenly they did, and there was,
It's just like, okay, we can just leave.
it was almost like 1984. Do you know 1984, where they keep changing who they're at war with, and everybody just accepts it.
Yeah, we've always been war at Eurasia. We've never been war at Eurasia. Yeah.
Exactly. It was like that they just changed the rules, and the commentators just go on as if, no, it's always been this way.
But that's exactly what happened at the end of this table match, guys. Like, literally, through the whole match, at the beginning of it and through the, like, 5 tables, you have to put them through 5 tables, and then it just changes. Oh, wait, we missed the 5.
It was definitely that, because I went back to make sure I didn't mishear it, because once he goes through the first table, your man says, oh my God, it took the wall that much work to get Shane Douglas through one table, and he has 4 more to go.
Yep. No, it's weird. When you watch it on the network, it says best of 5, right? And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And then you watch it and you're like, wait, no, what's going on? What's going on?
So the end of this bugged me so much. So they set up a big ladder in front of 3 tables stacked on top of each other, and we'll all see where this is going.
Yeah.
Then Shane Douglas just climbs up one side of the ladder, and the wall, for no reason whatsoever, instead of tipping the ladder over, instead of pulling them down, instead of doing anything, the wall just walks around and climbs up the other side of the ladder where all the tables are stacked.
Because the match was over.
It bugged me so much.
They had to get to the finish. The Wall's not a good wrestler, dude. He never was. Like, he tries his best, but man, jeez. So we had another gimmick match.
Oh God!
Scott Steiner defeated Rick Steiner and Tank Abbott in a handicap asylum match in under 4 minutes. What is an asylum match? I don't know, but it involved weapons.
It's a even crappier cage. It's a cage that comes down from the roof, and instead of going around the ring, it sits in the ring. So it's tiny, and you don't have access to the ropes or the turnbuckles, or it's dreadful.
I mean, points for effort, but another case where they had to rely on hitting people with things or stupid cages, and it was just like
the only thing that I did like about this, I thought they did an almost subtle kind of story at the end where Rick Steiner was helping Tank Abbott beat up Scott Steiner.
Yeah.
And he was okay with that, but then Tank Abbott went to pull a chain out and like lay out Scott Steiner with the chain, and Rick stepped in the way. He's like, all right, look, I'm going to help you beat up me brother, but I'm not going to help you kill him. And I thought there was a nice kind of story there, but I mean, I assume it just went nowhere, did it?
There was no time for it. Like, they kind of go back and forward with this Rick Steiner, Scott Steiner thing until the end of WCW. And then also picks up randomly at random points again in TNA and stuff like that. But they're kind of like the Undertaker Kane dynamic, but so much worse. Look, as I said, if this had been longer, if the rules had been made clearer, if the objective of the match was made clear, as I said, yeah, there was weapons in a cage in it, but I still don't know what an asylum match is. It's like, what's the difference? Is it just the cage? Is that all it is? Like, no, silly.
There's another classic call in this one where your man goes, the girls who accompany Scott Steiner to the ring, he's like, the girls are banging on the cage. They can't even get in there to help him. I was like, well, what are they going to do in there with Tank Abbott and Rick Steiner? What are they going to do?
Like, was it Medea? Is that how you said it? Medea? That's her name? One of the girls. There was Medea and Sharika, right? And Medea, according to Wikipedia, is a personal trainer, a fitness model, and a beautician. I don't
Not
think
a pro wrestler.
At no point did he say pro wrestler. I don't think it's fair to expect her to beat up Rick Steiner and Tank Abbott.
Or the shoot fighter Tank Abbott.
Shoot fighter, exactly. It's like, I don't think that's a fair fight there. Come on. What was that a Scott Hudson or Mark Madden call? It had to be.
It was one.
Had to be.
Well, it wasn't Tony.
It wasn't Tony.
Tony did a hell of a shift tonight.
Oh man, poor Tony. You know what? Whatever he got paid for this, he needs to get paid. He needs to get a check from WWE as reparation for this show. Terrible stuff. Poor lad.
I actually briefly listened. Now, I couldn't listen to the whole thing because it was 3 hours long, but I listened to his "What Happened When" with Conrad Thompson.
Right.
Tony Schiavone does a podcast with him, and this is one of the shows that they cover. And he is I mean, the language, the people of Phoenix FM would be scandalized if I were to quote it, so I won't. But the language Tony goes into, just ripping into this show, ripping into the company, just ripping the other commentator. He just rips everything apart.
Oh man, I can imagine how cathartic that probably is too. All right. So this is what. Here's the weird thing about the show. This felt like the main event.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't, and even like the gimmicks escalated, but the matches kind of petered out here. Like the build petered out. Hogan came out to the biggest pop of the whole night,
and I mean significantly.
Yeah, by a country mile.
And when he left, the crowd went right back down to what they were before.
Yeah. And Horace Hogan was there. He even got a pop for some reason.
Maybe it's the haired Hogan and they kind of popped. Maybe it's like whenever I, the odd time I'm watching WWE and I hear that guitar thing and I'm like, Brett! Oh, Natalia.
I have to say, Horace Hogan usually looks atrocious. But for some reason, the NWO kind of thing really worked for him. It's the only time where it's like, fair enough, But why he was the referee, Hogan probably just wanted to give him a paycheck. Not.
You got to give him that. He looks after his own. Like
he does.
He kept Brutus Beefcake in work for 20 years when he had absolutely no business being in a wrestling ring.
Well, I don't know. Again, Bruce Beefcake again in the NWO is the only one who would be like, yeah, again, whenever he went into the NWO, a lot of times they put the shirt on them and it damaged the gimmick. But sometimes it was like, okay, fair enough. But Horace Hogan is probably one of the worst things on the show, and that's saying something. He cannot move or ref. And if memory serves, did he have a bandage on his head?
Yeah.
That was incredibly distracting. I thought it was a weird bandana for ages, and I'm like, take the bandana off. I was like, oh no, it's I was watching it on the iPad and I'm like, man, what is going on here? Like, it's infuriating. And another thing is, like, Billy Kidman was trying. And Hogan was trying too, which is weird. Hogan actually showed up to work tonight, but the match was terrible.
It was all right. It just had so much other crap around it. Like, so if you were to take it, like you say, just as a match, Billy Kidman bumped his arse off for Hogan. Hogan, I mean, he's not great, but he didn't phone it in. No, he
didn't phone it in. No, he actually showed up. He showed up to work.
The crowd came alive for the match, but
yeah.
This whole New Blood Millionaire Club thing confuses me. The face heel dynamic is so arse backwards.
Well,
I
remember,
have no idea about who I'm meant to be cheering for, or who I'm meant to be.
The Millionaire Club, they're the faces.
Yes, the Millionaire Club
Blood
of 20-year veterans who are holding down the new guys are the faces.
They're the good guys. The young fellas are the bad guys.
But then Tori Wilson shows up,
yes,
to give Hogan a pair of brass knuckles.
Yes,
but he's a face. But then
yes.
Kidman uses the brass knuckles on Hogan because he's a heel. But then Hogan lifts the brass knuckles and uses them on Kidman. But then again, Hogan's Hogan is weird. He spent his whole career being a face who wrestled like a heel.
Yes.
You know, the back scratches, the eye pokes,
Even it was, I was listening to the Observer the other day, and they were talking about the WrestleMania where Brett lost and Hogan showed up and made himself champion.
Oh, nine. Yeah.
They were saying they actually said a very similar thing where Hogan, the match he had earlier on in the night, he wrestled the entire thing as a heel.
His when you look back at it, his whole bloody career, he wrestles as a heel. It's bizarre.
It's crazy. It makes no sense. But
he cheats and he gets cheered for it.
He cheats.
He cheats constantly the whole way through his career, and he gets cheered for it. He like I say, he does all the wee sneaky heel moves. You know, like you're saying, the scratches and eye pokes and all that. It's when you go back and look at it, you know, when you're not sort of caught up in it at the time, it's bizarre.
Like, this guy's a terrible role model.
This guy's awful. That's before you find out about all the racism and sex tapes.
That's before you find out what he's like as a person, just as a wrestler. But yeah, man, this was disappointing. And the sad part of it was, it's weird because Billy Kidman, again, I wouldn't say, oh yeah, he's the face of the young WCW. I could pick anyone else. And I like Billy Kidman, but I'm like, could have picked anyone else. It's just, I don't buy it, you know. But
they were definitely trying to Jeff Hardy him.
But no, but they lost their real core. Jericho and the Radicals.
Yeah.
That, like, Chris Benoit should have been in there. That's probably who they actually would have used. But he's off in WWE making real money.
I love that when Benoit left, he said, I'm leaving. And they were like, oh, we're going to put the world title on you. And he's like, I'm still leaving. And then they went put the world title on him anyway.
It makes no sense. But no, folks, this pretty much was the main event. It doesn't look like it on the card. It doesn't feel like it when it's building up to it. But once it's over, you're like, oh, the show should actually be over now. Because all the heat is gone. Like, the next match we'll talk about in a second.
Well, if the show had been over, we wouldn't have got this next match.
No, or the two after it. Now, we are conscious for time, so we're gonna quickly talk about the main event real quick, the actual main event, because it's terrible, and then we'll circle back. So, Jeff Jarrett and Kevin Nash for the World Championship with Ernest the Cat Miller as special guest enforcer. In the 2.5 minutes we have left.
Yeah.
Give us the best rundown of it.
Absolute nonsense, doomed from the start. Ernest the Cat Miller comes out and he introduces the special guest timekeeper and the special guest announcer and the special guest referee and the special guest water boy, and it's basically stacking the cards up against Nash right from the start. At no point do him and Jarrett even get to have 5 minutes of a wrestling match. This thing it's interference, it's ref distractions, it's ref bumps, it's all utter nonsense. And then Goldberg's Jeep shows up. Weirdly, Goldberg isn't driving it. you can see the stuntman who's driving it. Goldberg comes out of somewhere else.
I love it.
And then typical Vince Russo, what a swerve, bro. Goldberg turns heel. And the only thing I would say about this is, how did Vince McMahon not see the disaster of WCW turning their top babyface heel and then go ahead with WrestleMania X7?
Hubris.
Or was X7 2000 or 2000?
No, this was before, because X7 was literally a month after they bought WCW.
There you go. So how McMahon didn't see what a disaster this was for them, because they had to retcon it and turn Goldberg back 2 months later. How they didn't see this happen and they went ahead with the bloody X7 turn, I'll never know.
That's the best rundown of it. Interesting point. This is the last Great American Bash held by WCW, and it wouldn't be revived until 2004.
Oh, can I ask you something else about this.
Yeah.
So at the end of this match, when Goldberg turns,
Yeah.
fans, and I'm using the word fans in air quotations,
People who are there
start pelting the ring with rubbish. I think that was a work. I think they were trying to recreate. Do you remember when the fans genuinely pelted the ring when Hogan turned heel?
Yeah.
I think they had people in the crowd doing that deliberately to try and mimic the.
At this point, WCW was heavily papered.
Yeah.
So that's probably true.
So something about it just didn't feel like a natural, spontaneous outburst by the fans. Yeah, probably because they've been so, uninterested the whole way through.
So, guys, if you're listening to us on Phoenix 92.5 FM, we are going to have to leave it there. We're going to keep going on Overdrive and finish off with, you really do not want to miss the next 10 to 20 minutes of this show. So, if this is your first time listening, thank you so much. Go over to Nerd to Know Media. All the links are there. If not, the True Penny channel has them as well. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, all that good stuff. And Martin, is there anything you want to say to the people of Dublin before we get out of here?
Punk, fight me.
There you go. Undefeated words from an undefeated MMA fighter. We'll be back after this short break if you're listening to us on the network. If not, we'll see you next week here on Phoenix 92.5 FM.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.
You have nothing else to do on a Saturday? Do you like nerd things? Now check out Nerd to Know Basis here on Phoenix 92.5 FM, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. And then head over to nerdtoknowmedia.com for all of our shows as part of the Nerd to Know Media radio network.
Alright guys, we are back here on the Wrestling Rewind talking about the Great American Bash 2000, and we saved the worst but also the best for last, because Martin, I didn't want to not do these two matches because you can't, and I also didn't want to squish them into 2 minutes because you can't.
These require
these
analysis.
They do. They absolutely do. So the first one, I think, is it's like a match made in hell for us. It's the build up to everything that we hate about WCW in one match, right? But
sorry, before we even get started on the quality of the match, talk about the booking. Not only is this the second retirement match of the night, it's the second retirement match in a row. They literally put this on directly after Hogan's retirement match.
Yeah. But we have the return of concert goer David Flair. He looks like he's going, you know when you went to a metal gig and there's some guy there that doesn't like metal, but he's there anyway, and he's wearing he's literally wearing something. Yeah, it's like the girlfriend's into metal, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I like Metallica." That's what it's like, and basically he's wearing what you would expect someone like that to wear, these light jeans and this a Great American Bash shirt, and you're like, man, do you not own a pair wrestling tights? No, well, anything, shorts.
His father comes down to the ring, resplendent in a long robe. And then even though he's an old fella and he's he's starting to show it in terms of his body shape and all, he doesn't care. He strips down to the trunks and the boots, and he for all the world looks like a wrestler. David Flair is there, as you say, in jeans and a t-shirt. I think he's wearing wrestling boots, but the jeans are coming down over the boots, so they look like shoes.
Yeah.
And as if David Flair hadn't decided to heal himself enough with me, he comes out wearing a bloody big Union Jack t-shirt.
Yeah, that was that. No, several Union Jacks everywhere. So I thought it was Great American. I thought it was
Jacks all over.
Yeah, no, I thought it was weird. I think it's like a weird Great American. Like it had Great American on it for some reason, but then Union Jacks. So
I think it was somewhere around. I think it says WCW UK tour.
Oh, that makes sense.
Like that.
That makes sense. I don't know. Look, dude, WCW merch confuses me. I wouldn't be shocked if it had that contradiction in it. But
oh yeah,
all I know is there were 6 Union Jacks there, which was a lot. It's a lot.
Well, it's David Flair trolling me from beyond the grave.
And again, we love our UK fans, we really do. But as Irish people, the Union Jack's kind of tough. A little bit.
To see it on David Flair was particularly
as well.
difficult.
It's like, oh man, all you have to do is heal it up more.
Someone said to me, rather see the Union Jack on David Flair or flying over Dublin. Oh, that's a coin toss.
It's a coin toss. Yeah, you have to see which one it is. Oh man, I just hate David Flair so much. He's like, I think he might be the worst thing that ever happened to wrestling.
He's dreadful.
Now, interesting, right? So usually we just get one spawn of Flair, right? But we have 4. What's it? 4 involved in this. So his 2 daughters and his wife that looks like could be his daughter, which is weird. His other son, little young fella, and then obviously David Flair. Now,
the little young fella who's a better wrestler than David
Flair.
Oh
man, he's a much better bumper. He understands psychology. He sells. Why didn't they just have him in the match?
He's bloody brilliant.
He's great. The worst, oh man, it was so annoying. I'm convinced the only one who got no wrestling talent is David.
What happened?
I don't know. He's the only one.
Honest to God, whichever, because I know Flair's had several wives, and I think his most recent marriage, I think, ended this week. I don't think it's his.
You know what he should do? He should throw a party every 3 or 4 years and just pretend like he gets married. He can't afford it anymore.
I think what happened with David Flair is the wife went off and slept with Disco Inferno, and when because the lad has no wrestling ability, and when the baby came out, she didn't want Flair to know, so she dyed his hair, bleached his hair blonde. I think that's what happened.
I'd buy it. I'd buy it. That makes a lot of sense. He's had 5 wives.
Yeah, I knew a man with 5 wives on his way to St. Ives.
That's a lot. So interesting, right? So do you know who was in attendance watching the match and then actually involved in it? Did you catch who it was?
I mean, not like Charlotte.
It was Charlotte, yeah.
Yeah.
It was. Or using her shoot name, Ashley.
Yes, I noticed that because they weren't saying her name, but even back then, that big Charlotte Flair head is unmistakable.
You can't miss it. I was like, that's Charlotte Flair. I'm sorry, it has to be. And then I looked it up and it was, and because you can't miss her, she's just that's her. Right.
I don't think that is an insult either.
No, it's just who it is.
She's very distinctive.
She's very distinct. But again, I don't think she was trained at that point, but she was still a much better wrestler than David. It's like, why didn't they just do this angle with her? She would have been better, obviously.
Easily.
Obviously.
He just has.
Oh man.
No. So he got none of the business. So he obviously doesn't have the physical side. He can't do any of the moves. This is a very kicky, punchy, choppy match.
Yeah, there's 4 moves in this: kick, punch. Sorry, 5. Kick, punch, throw to ground, bad figure 4 leg lock, and then good figure 4 leg lock. And that's about it.
Interestingly,
who's doing it.
Both of them, I thought it was hilarious that both of them screwed up the the Flair throw into the turnbuckle flip over?
Yeah.
Both of them screwed that up. Although that's I remember in training a couple of years ago, we all took turns trying to do that, and that's a legitimately terrifying, because you keep thinking you're going to catch your neck in between the ropes.
Yeah, no, that looks like a scary spot, all right. But we'll let them away with that. But the figure 4 leg lock, you should be able to do that.
The point is, so he doesn't have the physical side, but he doesn't have the storytelling side. No. So his face the whole time is so terrified and so what my dad would call a balky. Just like he can't sell anything with his face. He can't sell fear or anger or pain. And oh my,
that's why when the young fella came out and was selling better than he was, I'm like,
yeah, he was giving stick to Russo.
Yeah, it's like you probably should have just got him to do it. You know, it's like, because he got it. He was selling when he got thrown to the ground. He was like, oh, you know, whatever. And then, as you said, he was giving it to Russo, like.
Yeah, and then the coup de grace, the cherry on top of it all, was at the end when his father puts him in a figure four leg lock. Figure four leg lock hurts your leg, so you sell your leg.
Yeah.
And instead, he just starts flopping his whole body like a fish.
The old Devon cell.
It was just bizarre.
Yeah, it made no sense.
He literally has no wrestling ability.
No, he did not. And he lost the match. Vince Russo was there being Vince Russo. And again, that's a whole other thing. But
Russo at one stage puts Ric Flair in a pair of handcuffs.
Yes.
And the ref lets the match go on. Yep. And I checked, it's not a no DQ.
No, it's just a normal match. No, it not only does that happen, it is a central part of the match. So I don't think anything there was illegal as such, but any referee would have been like, no, what are you doing with the handcuffs? Stop.
Like, it's one thing if it had been outside the ring brawling or while the referee was knocked out or something. But no, they're in there having a normal match and the ref's there reffing this normal match and Ric Flair has a pair of goddamn handcuffs on him.
Yeah.
It's just bizarre.
No, it is bizarre. Like, to be fair, like, there is an argument to be made, what could the ref do? But then again, the ref is there like properly caught and he's looking right at the handcuffs. So the disqualification would have been a bit much, but you think he would have like stopped the match and been like, here, get the handcuffs off. No, he just goes on like normal.
I'm not going to allow this match to continue while one competitor has no ability to defend himself.
And the commentators are like, oh, he can't even deliver his chop now, and it's just like, well, yeah, because he's handcuffed. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, they started selling it as like a real tactical thing. So yeah, they've removed these moves from Ric Flair's repertoire. It's like, nah, you've handcuffed him, is what you've done.
You're just cheating. That's all this is. Openly cheating.
It's like, yeah. They've taken the figure four leg lock out of Ric Flair's game by kneecapping him. No, man, you just shot the dude.
They've removed competition, by killing him.
Yeah, just killed him in the car park before the match.
Before the match.
Yeah, it's not like this super tactical move you've made. You've just bloody handcuffed him.
Yeah, that's all it was. And it's like, again, folks, if you think we're exaggerating this, when weird stuff, it's like the table match. It just happens, and they just sell it like it's completely normal. It's like, yeah, that's normal, all right. And you're like, it just happens because you're watching it and you're like, did I have a brain aneurysm or something? And you're like, no, it's just like normal.
Like, we obviously and rightly just rail on this stuff, but there is a perverse level of like really bad movie enjoyment out of these WCW pay-per-views.
I had a great time. I'm sorry, I loved this show. It was brilliant. But it, like, again, like, we watched the show a couple of weeks ago where it was just like, I'm not the WWE one because obviously the Rumble was horrendous, but God. the boring WCW. This was wonderful WCW where this is so bad. It's so incomprehensible. It's good, you know.
Yeah, it's just it gets a reaction out of you, let's say. Well, so boring, the worst thing a wrestling match can be is boring. Yeah, it can be amazing or it can be terrible, but
yeah. What the thing that, again, and I forgot how unique it feels watching WCW, is that where stuff just happens and you know something and you know it's wrong, like your brain is like, this is wrong, and then they just sell it like it's normal. That is, you can't get that anywhere else. It's brilliant. WCW 2000. They should, if they bottled that and sold it, I'd buy it.
I keep going back to it, but it's because it's the only thing I can
It's
think that
incredulous.
as akin to it. It's bloody 1984.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, you saw it, but we're just going to completely pretend like it's normal. And it happens 2 very specific times in this pay-per-view. And, you know, it's bizarre. It's so bizarre. But again, in my brain as well, I didn't realize all this happened at the same time. I thought they were different because, like, out of context, you could take any one of these big events and go, yeah, this was bad WCW. Remember when that time happened? It's like, yeah, it happened within 20 minutes of each other. You're like, oh, God, okay. So the next one, right?
Oh, this was something.
This was something. And again, not the main event. Probably should have been.
The Human Torch match.
The Human Torch match. They literally killed a man. And it wasn't the main event. They had a wrestling match after it. Like, listen, if you set someone on fire, that's probably enough.
So this was, but no, what I'll tell you before we get into this, this actually had a really good build.
It did, yeah. Vampiro and Sting had a really good feud.
Yeah, and there was an awesome part of it where during one Nitro, Vampiro jumps Sting and he covers him in blood, and then he hooks him on his do that rappel hook Sting used to use coming down, and he hangs him above the crowd, and Sting's like hanging there, swaying above the crowd, just dripping blood. An awesome visual.
It is.
But this was
so
did not live up to it.
So Sting, Sting is an icon, and long-time listeners will know how much I love Sting, right? But holy hell, he's been in some bad matches, man. TNA specifically, the Last Rites match, which we'll probably watch at some point because that's a fun match. You forget, and you're like, oh yeah, Sting was never in a bad, and you're like, oh no, he was. He was in loads of bad matches. And this one as well, like Vampiro, I feel bad. Okay, another great call, one of my favorite calls. He can burn a man alive, but he's afraid of heights. Sting has taken away the advantage. And it's like, what are you saying? What are you saying? Why are you talking so much? You know what?
I'd love to listen back to your Vampiro chronology you did, because
I'll try find it. I will try find it because it is pretty good.
Well, because the thing is, in my memories, I always loved Vampiro. And in my memories, he was a great wrestler. And since we've been watching these things, I don't think I've seen one good Vampiro match. Was it just me being a kid? Is he terrible?
Yeah. He's not terrible. He's just not good.
Yeah.
He just looks cool.
That must be what. Yeah, as a kid, I must have just loved the gimmick because.
Well, he redeems himself in like Lucha Underground and stuff later on, like creatively, and you're like, okay, well, all that stuff you did, we can kind of forgive it because creatively you put on a good product. But yeah, he wasn't good. He just looked cool.
Yeah,
and a lot of this is because like what. Yeah, no, watching wrestling as a kid, you're like, you forgive a lot more.
Similarly with this match, it wasn't good, but parts of it looked cool. I
don't think it was bad.
Do you know what it was? If they had so it was so awkward. So the spots that were cool were awesome, but they took so long to awkwardly set them up.
Look, here's another one, right? Where if this had just been a cage match, fine.
Yeah,
or a casket match, or anything where those, because again, this was a case where it was great in the ring and kind of outside, and then once they went to the ramp, you're like, because they set it up actually at the beginning. Because Sting was up he had moved the torch. So the object of the match was to use the open flame torch to set your opponent on fire. So it's like, it's an Inferno match with more steps. which doesn't make it.
Well, this what you were saying is the opening is indicative of the problems with the entire match. So the match opens with Sting on top of the, I suppose WWF calls it the Titantron. I think it was the Nitro Vision, but it was the Titantron. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Sting's up on top of there with the torch, and he says, "Vampiro, if you're gonna fight me up here." And Vampiro goes, "No." So then Sting just has to climb down and walk to the ring.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, well, this has been going on for 10 minutes and the bell hasn't rung yet.
I love the way he's just like, no. It's like, well, that's it then. Well, there we go. That's the end of the feud.
Come on, I climbed all the way up here. Oh, well, I never told you to do that.
This is embarrassing. Like, imagine, it's the equivalent of Mankind climbing the top of the Hell in a Cell. And Undertaker just gone, well, I'm not going up there.
Undertaker just going, ref, count him out.
Come on, ref, go. I'm not going up there. That's what happened. And then Mankind awkwardly getting down into the cell. It would just
back into the
It just kills the whole thing. Like,
it's literally what happens. He starts off up there. He's up on top of the Titantron with his torch. Fight me up here. No.
But again, this is like the ambulance match, like the boot camp match, like the tables match, like the handicap asylum match. So many gimmicks. This was ruined by it. If this had just been a normal DQ match, or even, a creative cage match, would have been brilliant. And I don't think it's because Vampiro isn't a bad wrestler. He's just not a good wrestler, but he is a creative guy. He's like Bray Wyatt, right? And I think these guys had a creative idea. They were given 8 minutes, and Russo was like, I'm not going to blame Russo because that's not fair on everything. But I do think somebody were like, no, we need to make this bigger. You need to kind of go here. And by going so big, it's ridiculous because, like, it ends as it begins. And Sting, well, it's not Sting. I don't care what people say. It's not Sting. Some fella dressed as Sting does a full body burn, and then
I'll tell you what. So I was thinking the whole way through this, I'm thinking, oh man, the one thing you shouldn't do in wrestling is overpromise on something you can't deliver.
Yeah.
And I thought, for all the problems this match had, I thought the actual burning of Sting, I thought Sting going up in flames and falling off the Titantron, I thought that spot was done pretty cool. Look,
it was.
It obviously wasn't Sting. As soon as he came down, they covered him in like fire extinguishers and then a blanket so you couldn't see his face and all. But I thought the actual...
It was Disco Inferno. No, it wasn't. I don't know. But, it was cool. Like, again, it's one of only two times I've seen a full body burn done in wrestling. This one was done live. The one where Bray Wyatt was set on fire wasn't. That was done pre-taped. And that one was really, really well done, to be fair. To be really fair, that was really done well. But it's impressive because this was done in front of a live crowd. So... Yeah.
Now, again, the only problem with it was the bloody setup. So the actual flame and the fall were really cool. But they went up on the Titantron and they fought up there for a bloody eternity while the lights flicked on and off and went out. And
that was annoying.
Like, that should have been, once they got up in the Titantron, there should have been a really short exchange and then one of them swings the torch at the other. But they fought up in the Titantron for what felt like, it was probably only 2 minutes, but it felt like 10.
Here's how you rebook this match. Vampiro comes out with the canister of gasoline, right? Sting attacks him as he's going through, or even swap it around. Sting is walking out, gets attacked by Vampiro. Vampiro throws the gasoline on him, so you have that spot and you have the danger in it, right? And then they're fighting around the control area for a while. And they ascend, and the majority of the match happens up there, and then you have the fall. That makes way more sense.
I'll tell you what you do, Dara.
5-minute match.
How about this? Vampiro comes out, and you do a Batman Arkham Asylum. Sting descends down behind him, grabs him, and the rope takes him back up.
That's also cool.
And then the two of them's up on the Titantron. They have their, like you say, 4 5-minute real fast-paced brawl.
Yeah.
One of them gets lit, falls off.
And then, because like that's actually even better. Again, I was just trying to book it around the spots that they had because they made a big deal out of the gasoline thing. But that's even better again. And to be fair, they could have done that. They had the zip line. They had, but they were like, I don't know what they were thinking, because by doing it the way they did it, you're just waiting for a spot that you know is going to happen, but there's no build to it because they got rid of the build by, having Vampiro say no. All you have to do is get him up high and he's not going to do it. So where's the danger? Where's the danger? Anyway.
I tell you what, I was a wee bit uncomfortable after this as well with all the announcers using their own heart voices, for the...
Yeah.
Oh, this isn't part of the show, folks. This is... Turn that camera off. Get the camera off. And it's like, oh, lads, don't.
Yeah, no. Just don't. Just don't. Anyway, so the 10th Great American Bash promoted by WCW went down in the history books for many reasons. What would you give the show, Martin, out of 10?
3. But
an enjoyable 3?
Oh yeah. So here's the thing. I'd rather watch a 2 or 3 out of 10 than a 5 out of 10.
Right. That's fair. Yeah.
So overall, this flew. I sat and watched. It was 2 hours 45 minutes. I sat down and I watched it in one go. I made me notes. I chuckled away to myself. It's not a good wrestling show, but if you are a wrestling fan, in terms of entertainment, yeah.
Listen, we watched the Rumble last week, and that was a tough watch.
Yeah.
That show, it was 4 hours, and I felt every second of it. This show was a nice tight 2 and a bit. It was god-awful, but I had a wonderful time watching it.
Yeah, there was so much eye-rolling nonsense in it, but it was... If you take this almost as like a time capsule and you're just going into it to see what the death of WCW is like, awesome, yeah.
I don't know if again, I was 8 when this was, or something like that. It was 8 or 9. I don't really remember because obviously, and I don't remember being upset by it. I just remember being like, oh, it's kind of weird. WWE is a lot better, or WWF at the time was a lot better.
Well, I'm thinking,
but
if 2000, so I would have been 14 when this came out. 14-year-old Martin watching this. Major Guns is out, shaking her knockers around.
Yeah.
General Huge Erection is making genitalia jokes. Hogan's there. Sting gets set on fire and thrown off a Titantron. 14-year-old me probably would have thought this was awesome.
Yeah, I don't really, I know the internet was around, but it obviously there was no Twitter, right? I would be interested to see if wrestling fans were freaking out over this or if they were just kind of entertained by it. And I think they probably would be really angry at this. Be like, what is going on? It would be interesting to see. And look, guys, if you were not a child or a young teen and you were in your, early adulthood, let us know what you thought, because we weren't. we weren't. Email us. Or
God, can you imagine if Twitter was around for the previous 20, 30 years of wrestling?
I think they would have had a lot more to talk about, to be honest with you. There was so much on the show that I would gladly go back and watch this again. Because I have, again, it's been a long time since I've even thought about it, but I'd watch this again every couple of years. Compared to any WWE recent show that we've seen. The Royal Rumble this year, I never ever want to think about again. Never mind watch. But this actually had some pretty cool moments. That Mike Awesome DDP match was
bloody
very
great.
Good. Yeah. Very good, And I'm glad that we're able to go back and watch this in it. But I would say if you haven't seen this, guys, yes, it's a 3 out of 10. It has to be. It has to be.
Even for the crack, you couldn't give it any higher.
it is awful, but I mean, like, it's awful in the best way you want it to be awful. It's fun, it's bizarre, it's incredulous, but you'll have a great time watching it. And then you're like, okay, cool, man. Let's go for the next one. So the next one that we're going to do in our timeline is Bash at the Beach 2000.
Ew. Is this one of the ones that took place at an actual beach, or?
Daytona Beach, Florida.
Oh, all right.
So
we'll find out.
We're gonna find out. I'm not gonna have a look at the. Oh, this is the one with This is the one where Hogan walks out and Vince Russo gets sued at the end of it.
Oh my God.
Oh man. So I'm gonna stop
Russo.
reading. I'm going to stop reading the Wikipedia so I don't ruin it for myself. But we're going to talk about that next week, guys. So again, if you do want us to cover something else, please or let us know, because we're getting to the end of 2000, and then we're going to, I don't know what we're going to do after that. We might go to WWE. But guys, basically this is your show. Let us know what you want to cover. If we can find it easily, we will. But yeah, I've really enjoyed this show. I think this is one of the best bad pay-per-views you can sit down and watch.
Yeah, I don't agree with Jim Cornette on much, but I do agree with him and his attitude towards Vince Russo.
Well, next week is going to be even more interesting, because a lot of fallout from that. A lot of fallout from what happens next week. But folks, we are going to leave it there. Martin, is there anything you want to plug?
Oh, yeah, man. I have been obsessed this week with Metroid Dread.
Unreal.
Got it off my friend. He just gave me the loan of it, and it takes a wee bit of getting into, but man, once you're in it, you're in it. It's fantastic, unbelievable game. Yeah.
Unreal. I have been playing a lot of park simulators. I'm a big fan of like Planet Coaster and Planet Zoo. I can't play because no PC wants to work for me, which is a bummer. But playing a lot of the new Jurassic World Evolutions too. And that's basically you build a theme park, but with dinosaurs, man, and it's a lot of fun. So that's what I'm playing a lot of. And if you just want to play one of those games where you start playing at 9:00 and then you look outside and it's bright, you're like, what happened? It's one of those games, and particularly for someone who's been sick for. Well, I thought I was hungover for like the first 4 days of this. I was like, man, I'm like, man, that hangover is really not going. What's going on? And then Monday hit me. I'm like, oh no, this is probably that was before. Yeah, this is that other thing that's gone around the world. So and so I've been playing some PlayStation to kind of make up for that. So theme park simulator games, they're brilliant. They are super fun, and so that's what I've been playing. But guys, we will leave it there. If you want to tweet me, you can at DarWV on Twitter. Martin, are you still using your Twitter, or how can it go?
Yeah. Slobberknicker is still there. Fire away.
Unreal. And Dave, we don't know where Dave is. He will be back eventually. He's promised us. Tweet Dave at DDaveStevens, and we'll be back next week to cover WCW here on the Wrestling Rewind. Bye, guys.
Keep our left.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.